Welcome to the EmpowHERment Show, a podcast designed to empower women like you to take control of your lives, make informed decisions, and redefine success on your own terms, beyond the noise of influencer culture.
Hello, I'm Adama. Welcome back to the EmpowHERment Show. I'm here with my amazing co-hosts, Maddie and Sam. And we have a fun back to school episode for you, even though none of us are going back to school or in school, but it's a good time of year to talk about it. It is rather a ritual, and whether or not you have kids, back to school is something that you see and deal with quite a bit. For myself, even though I do not have kids and do not intend to have children, it is fun to see all of the school buses in New York line back up, and weirdly enough, all of the black cars that take kids to school in New York, which is a whole other bizarre phenomenon that we could talk about another time. Other than that, lots of sales and lots of other things that happen around back to school. So we thought we'd dig into that a little bit this morning. So Sam, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. I think, we talked about kind of sharing stories for back to school. And I guess I have the distinction of being the only one on the podcast who has put a child all the way through school. And all the way through. In fact, as this appeal to the New York story, I remember, we always had a deal like, Ashley, if you can get into this school, be it a private elementary or a specific college or program, like by hook or by crook, I will find the money. You do the work, I will find the money. If I have to work 5 jobs. And she went to a school where a lot of kids had very nice cars dropping them off at school. And one day she was like, Mom, your car's so old and ugly. Like, can't you get a new car? Because when you drop me off, it's like really embarrassing.
How old were you when that happened, Sam?
How old was I?
Yeah.
She was in probably 7th grade, which means I would have been 31.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. I had Ashley when I was 20. So I was always the youngest mom by a wide measure. In fact, the moms were really nice to me when they thought that I was a volunteer from a local high school, but not when they realized I was another mother. Anyway, I'm spinning around to Ashley and just going, this school is my new car. You were sitting every day in my new car at your desk, because you can go to a horrible school up the street and I can drive you there in a very nice car, or you can come in this beater and go here, go to college. Choices.
I don't even remember what kind of car was that.
It was a gold 1999 Infiniti.
Ooh, kids are so brutal, man.
They really are.
It was only like 7 or 8 years old. It wasn't that bad.
I remember, that's what I thought, because I was like, I don't really remember you driving a beater.
Yeah.
No, but some of the other moms were driving like brand new G-Wagons every year.
Well, might be. Yeah. That brings up, like, I think something we wanted to, so as we talk about, like moms and the challenges that moms deal with as we get back into this season and juggling jobs on top of it and the household, all that is like on memories we all have growing up of like our own moms and our like education. And, it's interesting to hear from your standpoint, Sam, as a mom now, like that's a core memory. I'd love to hear like the flip of like your childhood, but yeah, like I remember growing up with my mom, I absolutely loved a project. Anytime I had a chance to go to like Staples or Joann's or like
Office Depot or Michael's.
Exactly. Like anytime we had an opportunity to go there and buy stuff to like create a, I don't know, like shoebox float situation or a poster or whatever it was, like I lived for that shit. And my mom was,
I fully
yes, I will be like that mom.
I've never seen how you put together a Notion board, but I fully believe this.
Notion is like it's like my new like posters. So anyway, my mom though, like bless her, she was like, okay, we're doing the 10th trip to Staples this month for this girl to get her project stuff. And like that's expensive too, like going constantly to these stores to buy arts and crafts. And she like always was happy to take me because it like made me so excited. And my parents were like, this girl like loves school, so like we're just gonna keep running with this. But it was an expensive investment to be like facilitating these little passion projects of mine, because yeah, they were like few times a month, and maybe a couple $100 a trip. And like my parents, we grew up, like very middle class. Like we were perfectly fine, but it was an undertaking for them. And I just like, yeah, I take my hat off to both my parents for being like, we don't want to kill her joy, so we're willing to do it.
For me as a parent, we had the reverse rule, which was like I had a whiteboard that you needed to write by a date certain when you had a project, because typically in our house, my daughter would pop up at like 8:30 at night as she was getting into bed and go, oh, by the way, I have a project due tomorrow and I need poster board. And
yep. Yeah, see, I was not like that. I was like, it's due next month. Let's go today. What about you, Adama? What's a memory you have?
I mean, the thing that I remember the most about my mom with school is that I always liked to do sports. And my mom was a single mom. We didn't have any money. And my mom always found money for like basketball shoes, track clothing, running shoes, like whatever those things were. My mom always found money for them. She always found money for school trips. And I think, I mean, it was maybe a little bit different. I mean, I grew up in the 90s and you didn't have a computer, right? Like, I can't imagine now. To me, like now, the thing that would be like this huge expense is the tech that all these kids need. Mm-hmm. Like having to have a computer or an iPad and internet. Like I grew up, we had an Apple IIgs and you played Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, or you had like a Sega and you played Pac-Man or like Galaga or something like that, right?
Like, I had Mavis Beacon typing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that too. Oh, at my high school, I had to take a typing class. That was part of the curriculum in high school, was typing, and it was on like a typewriter. Like it was on I mean, it was a word processor typewriter, but it was a typewriter. Like I didn't have a laptop until I went to college, and it was like an IBM ThinkBook or something like that. And it did not like attached to any internet. Like you still had the like old experience. I mean, it was basically a glorified word processor, but that's what I remember. I remember my mom always making sure that I could participate and take part in all of the activities and things that I wanted to. And I just really salute all the moms who are making ends meet and stretching $1 to make $2 so that their kids can have a new outfit or run track or go to the after school activities and all of those things.
Get a prom dress or yeah.
Yeah. I specifically did not want to do that ever in my life.
Like you think about how seamlessly parents do those things. And, as a kid, you just have the anxiety of what happened and what you got versus everyone else. Right.
And how you look. And yeah.
I still have fever dreams about school now as an adult. Every year when the legislature restarts, I have this nightmare that someone calls me and tells me I failed calculus and therefore high school. And I have to like sneak out in between legislative hearings with my back to go back to high school.
Can you imagine?
We as people that go through the system, like we benefit from, or don't benefit from whatever that trajectory was. But you do, it's easy to forget like the mental load. Like you were talking about, your mom always found money for clothes. My mom would take us to like Mervyn's or Macy's and take photos of clothes. Often the clothes on the clearance rack, which is even funnier when I get to the end of this story. And then she would go home and make them like on her sewing machine in the garage all night.
Wow.
But like the logic of why did we have to go to the clearance rack to take her? Like we couldn't.
She's like, I had the newest, like the latest and greatest.
But she would like every prom.
She was like, no, I'm not about that life.
I'll have to find one of my prom pictures to send for the Instagram, because it's funny. Like my mom sewed the whole dress, like, just pursed out the fabric. And I don't think about it very often until it's like, oh yeah, no, my mom was always in the damn garage with the sewing machine, making sure that I didn't look like a whole fool for homecoming or whatever, on top of all of the other things that moms are doing. So
Yeah, that's wild. My husband's mom is a seamstress. Like she sewed the dress she wore to our wedding. It's incredible. But a part of that was like an economical decision because it was better to just make her own clothes and make she had 4 boys. God, talk about like super mom on that topic. My mother-in-law raised 4 boys on her own and was getting her PhD while doing that. She's now a professor in it. Carol, hats off to you.
I was like, that just gave me like some indigestion.
Yeah, same.
It feels like school is a lot like more difficult now for kids. Like,
yeah.
Oh, when I hear about like all these like projects and special projects and like capstone projects and
it's ridiculous. So, getting into it, we want to talk about like it's not just about like the supply lists or like, making their lunches or getting them into sports. Like it's also how much more there is nowadays and just like how impossible the expectations are. And it's bred this like culture. And, we know I love to talk about toxic trend, but like on TikTok or on social media, you see these posts about super moms who are like, they're juggling whatever job they have if they're still working on top of, giving their kids like lunches that are like gourmet, everything organic, no pesticides, all that shit. And then the kids also like don't wear any clothing with chemicals or dyes. And then they're also like their projects are like top notch and their lives are just painted as like these perfect things because these moms are literally killing themselves to make that happen. And it's just so like disturbing to me because the expectations for women now, it's like, so I have to not only do that, but I also have to maintain my job if I want to be able to afford all of that. And then you like doom loop where it's like, okay, at some point one is going to have to give. And so it's no wonder that over 200,000 women have left the workplace this year alone. And while that happened, 42,000, somewhere like that, men entered it this year. And I'd love to dig into this with you ladies because, we all work here. Like this is just our like little side hustle project fun. But we have jobs and they're not like 9 to 5s. They're more like, I don't know.
the time.
All the damn time. Yeah. So how we're doing this, I don't know. Hats off to us ladies. But anyway, I don't know how women do it and it's just not sustainable. And like, I don't have many friends my age who are moms on top of like in corporate America as I am. Most of the moms I know are like 10 plus years older than me, but everybody just seems real tired. And I'm like, do I want that?
I still think about, I did this in my old job. I did this leadership program where they shipped us off to a very prominent university. It was like 19 women. And we were sitting around having dinner. And one woman was talking about how she had a husband who didn't work. And they started going around. And of these 19 women, 11 of them had stay-at-home husbands. And that was just...
Wow. I think 19 at that table.
Yes. The 19 women in the program, 11 had stay-at-home husbands. And I'll never forget this because it was so wild. The rest of us either were not married or did not have kids. And I totally got that because the only way because some of the women were SVPs, I was a VP at that time. The only way I could make my life work was not having kids and also having someone who cleaned my house, dog walkers, people helping me keep my life just together with the amount of work and travel that I had as a working woman. So add in 2-3 kids or whatever. And one more thing, it's impossible. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like the thing. I mean, I was a single mom and for most of Ashley's childhood, and I only had one, right? Like anytime the idea of additional children came up, it was like, at what cost? Why and to what end? Because at the time I was working a full-time job, like my sort of entry-level political job. I was still going to school. I managed an apartment building so that I could afford to live downtown because my entry-level political.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For that. Ashley was in school, and I think I was sleeping like 3 hours a night. And I was living off of baked potatoes, canned butter beans, and whatever food from political receptions I could pack up and bring home. And I think it's like, Dolly, you probably remember, I was like 0 pounds. And everyone was, oh, Sam's so thin. What do you do to stay in shape? And I'm like, I don't eat 8 hours.
I can't afford food, and I work all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do it too.
The number of stories I've also heard about women who don't eat anything except their kids' leftovers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is like,
yeah. And you know what? And I remember my mom doing it, right? We didn't grow up with, we had enough, but sometimes barely. And I remember my brother and I would do this over our dinner plates at night because my mom would like kind of sneak around if it looked like we were done and pick up stuff off our plates. Probably because she was fucking starving.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But it's interesting. Like my husband, Nathan, and I, we've talked about how growing up, because they also grew up very poor, and it was, their mom was just, trying to feed 4 boys. And so, it was all about like calories for dollars too. And like, so, cheap typically, and like probably not the healthiest options. And, you cleared your plate growing up because like you didn't know necessarily like if you were going to be able to afford your next meal. And this was like the first time, no, not the first time, but like it was like one of the most like kind of like strong times I realized I'm like, oh my God, I was so privileged growing up, because he was raised like you cleared your plate and you always ate everything. I was raised eat until you're full, and if there's like food left over, fine, we'll have like leftovers tomorrow. But like into my adulthood in terms of actually like my dietary habits, because like I don't eat to the point where I'm like full. I just kind of like graze. And whereas like my husband, I noticed whenever we ate, his whole plate would be gone. I'd be like, geez. And then I realized I'm like, oh my God, because you were raised he's like a
to eat your food, to clear your plate.
Yeah.
It took me years to stop clearing my plate just because the food was on it, because my grandmother grew up during the Depression. And my grandma was basically a food hoarder. Like,
I'm a food hoarder. I'm just barely trying to get out of the food hoarding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a learned behavior. It is a learned behavior. I mean, that's
right. But that was a really, it was a kind of a humbling moment where I was like, oh, because I never worried about my next meal. Like I grew up, there was a time when things were financially tough because my parents work in real estate, and when Sacramento's real estate market went, up, belly up in 2008, like, things were scary for a time growing up, but like all in all, I had an idyllic childhood and like I was fine. My mom was going to Home Goods or whatever, like, or Home Goods for interior design stuff. What's it called? Joann's for my projects, like every week, Anyway, so yeah, like just moms and like the mental toll they carry and ensuring that their kids are fed and fed, and then everything else they're managing. Something that we wanted to dig into on this episode is just nowadays, like Adama, you're talking about the moms who had their stay-at-home husbands. As somebody who works in corporate America, and like I want to have a kid one day too, and like my husband and I do perfectly fine. Like in any other city around the US, we live in San Francisco. We could easily afford to have like multiple kids, but we live in San Francisco, and childcare is like $3 to $4K per kid a month. And then getting them into schools is like the freaking Hunger Games because of the supply demand issue we have with childcare. And so whenever, like, we were at drinks last night and there was a cute couple that we met and we were like enjoying chatting, and they asked if we have kids and how old we are, because we are 30 and almost 33 for him. And I was like, we're not having them anytime soon. Like we're actually planning to freeze embryos later this year and just like bank them for whenever we want.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm looking at all these people who have kids right now and like haven't quite financially gotten where they want to be. And it seems like a real struggle. So like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait.
Well, I think
to be able to make that choice.
We talked about just the sort of like personal implications. And I think there's a lot there when it comes to education, right? Where do you go? What does that set you up to do the rest of your life? But from a policy standpoint, the school is such a big safety net. I mean, it's very easy to see the disparities, right? I didn't have the time. I tried my best, but I wasn't like, cutting out sandwiches in the shape of pandas or whatever you see on ticket. Like there was no way. And I couldn't afford the like singular pack to every kid, right? Which used to piss my daughter off because that's how you know someone's a poor kid, because they can't afford like clearly your mom's not a stay at home, and clearly you can't afford all these singular packed foods. But then there's the like free and reduced price lunch population where their only food is at school. And I think we saw a lot of this during COVID too. People who had like tenuous housing circumstances or didn't have access to the internet, or who their only food was the breakfast and lunch at school. What are you doing? And I think it cannot be understated how much the school operates as so much more than a school, because you can't learn if you don't have access to food, sleep, a place that even here in Sacramento, one of our colleagues who's now on the city council, she used to be the homeless liaison for Sac County, and she would just collect bath soaps and things and shampoos from hotels, because you have kids that are homeless or underhoused, I guess you could say, crammed in one house with one bed and 10 people. And they would stop coming to school because people would make fun of them because they smelled, right? Like, that's Stinky Joe. Well, Stinky Joe doesn't have access to a shower, you dick. And so they would collect all of these things and make sure kids got them. So, I think those type of that infrastructure and that safety net helps kids learn, but also, some of them will not eat without it. So.
Well, and now all that is at risk too, with all the funding cuts being made at the federal level. And I mean, I think I read somewhere that like for special ed, we're looking at like $15-16 billion in cuts. And so all these kids that, rely upon that are at risk. And then for Title I funding, it's like another 20 billion or something.
Yep. And all the mental health funding was cut for schools. And also, as you see headlines about homelessness being criminalized, also know that there are a lot of students who are homeless. My mom volunteered for quite a while at a homeless high school in San Diego that was right downtown, and it was only for homeless kids because there were enough of them that they could have their own school. And, yeah.
My friend Keisha Lynn has like been there forever. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my mom used to volunteer, do gardening work there, because she was like the urban gardener person, like an insane urban gardener. Like we had geese, we had ducks. Like that's a whole other episode. But yeah, there are. I mean, as you criminalize homelessness, there are children who will be caught up and impacted in really terrible ways as well. So.
And the same is true with immigration and ICE raids and otherwise, right? I mean, you have parents that are afraid to go to work, much less go pick up and drop off their kids from school, or
take their kids to school, or to have their kids go to school, because they're starting with adults. But like we all know, like this only progresses when you start taking people off the street. It doesn't stop anywhere.
No. Yeah. Well, and also, what are we going to do with all these kids now whose parents are?
Well, that's a really scary question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing that is very scary as well about all this is like the more government pulls back on these programs that provides, support system.
Lifelines.
The more women are going to step in and take on even more of the load that they already have been. And so it's no surprise to me that we see this correlation between like all these funding cuts happening and all these women leaving the workforce. And by the way, the vast majority of the women who are leaving the workforce are moms, or they are underrepresented minorities, and they have been impacted by like DEI backlash and all other kinds of shit coming out of the Doge like the debacle. And so we now have this broad swath of the population who are carrying the load, and we're trying to make systemic change in our institutions, but now we're just trying to get by and country afloat.
I saw a number, and I should have looked it up before this, but I saw a number of African-American women who worked for the Department of Education, were
and all
very, very disproportionately impacted by the cuts there.
Yeah.
And
Well, the number of African American individuals who worked for the federal government actually was very high. And so now those people are unemployed.
Yeah. I mean, their government jobs were good, steady jobs. You might not ever become a millionaire, but you had a steady job and you would have a pension at the end of it. And you're rewarded for education, you're rewarded for longevity. And to see that stripped away is, I don't know where government service goes after this. I don't know how you persuade people that,
and I think as much as it's been a topic of public debate, and particularly the far right in recent years has attacked it, government service was also a place where your job was protected. So it was very hard for a new administration to come in or a new manager and just decide they didn't like you because you were a woman or a person of color or gay or fat or whatever. They couldn't just run you out the door, and you had some confidence and comfort there. And I think to your point, Adama, like, where do we go government job wise? Who knows?
Right. I mean, it was also nonpartisan, right? Because you had the civil service stayed through Democrats, they stayed through Republicans, and these are by and large, they're nonpartisan roles.
Well,
and
much like a school environment, there is a benefit of like people from different backgrounds coming together. So if you had that continuity of service and differentiation of ideology, it sort of forced a new administration to get the historical background, to understand what had been tried, where we were, different perspectives,
what worked, right?
To eradicate that. And then now you have these very sort of flat, partisan, highly ideological structures, and now those are going to run schools and the safety net programs around them. Oh, by the way, we're mostly men. So
what do you ladies think about the fact that I can't remember exactly like what percent now, but like homeschooling is on the rise, like big time?
I was homeschooled, so
you were. Well, but that was largely because of what happened to your brother, correct?
Yeah, I know my brother was assaulted on campus when he was in the first grade and almost murdered, and suffered a TBI. And so at the time, the school district did.
What is a TBI?
Just traumatic brain injury. And at the time, the Alameda County School District, not that I don't hear that they're much better now, but did not offer any meaningful services for kids who had significant learning disabilities. So my mom pulled us out for a few years. So we can do a whole homeschooling.
Yeah. And like the reason that she did that though makes complete sense. And like she had to do what was best for her kids at that moment. But it's interesting to me that homeschooling, like across the board, seems to be on the rise, or is on the rise. Like there's data showing it, especially in like certain states. And I can't tell if it's driven by the fact that people are like, oh, I don't want my kids being taught woke shit in school, or if it's because they don't think the schools are doing a good job and they could do better, or is it like more moms are actually staying at home now and exiting the workforce and they just want more control over their kids? Like I mean, it's probably a confluence of all these things, but either way, I don't think it's a good thing.
I mean, who chooses to teach their kids like complicated geometry? Like,
hold on. I mean, so first of all, I think to your point, there's like a confluence of reasons, right? I mean, people we've talked even on the pod about trad wives and that whole thing. And I think there are some folks that are sort of like chasing that rainbow, right? Like that looks amazing and they can have a homestead and raise their kids and yada, yada, yada. Those people still existed in 1983, I assure you. And they were real fucking weird. And right, like, I mean, the kids in our homeschooling group, because you kind of have to have a group usually, like the county tries to make sure people are totally isolated, at least here in California. Like they weren't even allowed to watch Disney movies. I mean, there was a very heavy religious.
I was going to say so much of it is driven by churches and religious culture. That is a large part of it. That has always been the voucher crowd. That has always been the people who are saying that, our schools are doing a disservice.
Well, I think it's very, very wealthy people who, why am I going to let my kid go to school with these poor kids when they can travel with me everywhere and they'll have a tutor? That is a form of homeschooling. there is for whatever reason, academically or socially or mental health wise, this is a bad place for my kid. Like Ashley and I had a couple years in middle school, which were rough, where we talked about like, fuck man, do we just homeschool you? Like, I don't know how I do it, but it'd be better than whatever we're doing every day here. And I do think there were a lot of people from a mental health perspective or a physical health perspective during COVID who were like, enough, I'm basically homeschooling you anyway. So, that shifted a lot of folks thinking. But then, you also have a sort of whole population of people that are xenophobic, racist, anti-LGBTQ. They don't want liberal teachers teaching their kids about sex ed. I mean, that is an entire...
And the internet has made it easier, right?
Well,
before...
all the classes are online. I mean, you can have resources and everything with a digital teacher. I mean, it's not what it was when I was a kid. You have many more resources, right? We used to have to write classifieds to like the Cron and the New York Times to get advice on which curriculum to use. Oh
my God. Wow, you had to research.
Well, and now you can choose. Like, I just don't know that that's better. I don't know. I
know. I have two main concerns with it. The first is that actually for like kids' ability to like socialize down the road and be human beings, I'm like, there's so much like EQ developed from being in a classroom and like going to recess and having to fight over kickball with like another kid. Like that's like actually very formative, And so I'm very worried about that because kids are already isolating themselves due to like the fact that they can just like, talk to each other all day on these things. And then the other thing that I'm really worried about is that the more this trend grows, the more women are going to actually feel potentially pressure to be doing that because they're like, oh, that's become the gold standard. Because like if the Project 2025 crowd and everybody you were describing, Adama, like succeeds, that's going to become like what society tells us to do.
Well, and I'm also just like, is it good education? Because I have worked with any number of young people in the last, I would say, 10 years, and they can't really write. Like, they don't really know how to use a comma or a semicolon or, like a predicate or an adjective or an antonym or a synonym.
That's not homeschooling, though. I mean,
well, look, in general, it's not good, right? And by and large, these are people coming out of like schools.
Yeah.
But like, if that's not what people are doing, and now we're doing homeschooling, like, how good are your math skills? How good are your grammar skills? Like, can you read beyond an 8th grade level? Like, that's the thing I worry about because like I work with kids, Sam does too. We work with kids and we work in policy where you actually need to have research skills. And if you've never had to actually research anything from a book, it is materially different than Googling something or having ChatGPT tell you something.
Copying and pasting from your Google search is not a memo.
Yeah, there's just a lot of
conversation we've had to have recently.
I'm sure. I mean, yeah, even as somebody who's like, in like corporate right now and working with people who are now almost like 10 years younger than me, and I'm like, my God, it's wild. But a lot of them, like their writing or even their ability, like the way they speak, it's like a shorthand.
Yes.
And like there's a lot of words missing.
Like you have never read a book. You've never read a book.
Right. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a bit of a digression from the like homeschooling deal, but maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I don't know if these kids were homeschooled.
No, this is real. And there are books that were just always considered like classics, like, right? You just always read, like you read How to Kill a Mockingbird, To Kill a
Catcher in the Rye.
Those exact too, which is classic.
4, all of that stuff. And, there's a lot of places that have removed those type of things and the discourse around them from the curriculum. Yeah. I remember there was a young person who was like, oh, I saw in your office you have so many books. And my books are like, they're books. The Art of War and like, diatribes on Dixon and The Great Shark Hunt. I mean, there's a very specific genre that I tend to read. And I'm like, yeah, feel free to like, I tell everyone, like, borrow a book or whatever.
Please.
And a younger person, and they're like, no, I love to read. And I'm like, that's great. And then the conversation devolves into like, the preferred reading is, how do I say this? It's like sex fiction for fantasy creatures.
Oh my God. Like the Akatar series.
I guess, but like with
like mangas or like
with
or like just like straight up just like fan fiction. Like people are just reading other people's fan fiction.
Like vampires, kind of like Twilight used to be before it got popular. Like it's kind of like
let me be clear, that was fan fiction.
Okay, but like whatever. This is not my genre. You know this. Anyway,
the Twilight smut.
No, because it wasn't.
No, because no, let me be clear. I didn't read the source material. I don't know.
Okay, well, I did, ladies, and I was totally a Twilight girl. I literally went to a convention in San Francisco when I was 13.
I'm obsessed with this disclosure.
I was like so into Edward and Bella, guys. It was like unhealthy.
Was there a Twilight con somewhere?
Yes. And I went, my mother, Nancy, took me. She went straight to the hotel bar, but she was like, have at it, sweetie. It was my 13th birthday present.
It kind of reminds me actually of like that, and this conversation devolved quickly into that whole part of the internet on Tumblr that was like shipping on Sherlock. It was like Watson, and like it was all like sort of like,
oh yeah. I still remember, because I loved Sherlock when it first came out, and I still remember, this is like one of my more embarrassing disclosures that I will disclose to you guys.
Yeah, please help me.
After I watched the show, I like went on Twitter and I saw that the actors were like talking to each other. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I remember, I think I told Shirley, I was like, oh yeah, I follow all the actors from Sherlock on Twitter. And Shirley was like, are you fucking stupid? Those are just people who are calling themselves Sherlock or John, and they are like talking to each other.
And this is why we have critical thinking with important tools to teach young people.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway,
I'm not saying people shouldn't have hobbies. I'm just saying there is something important about having shared.
Hobbies are great. You just need to make sure that you are interrogating what you are ingesting online. Because I literally thought that like Benedict Cumberbatch was on Twitter, like talking to whoever is John Watson.
And Pat with a keyboard over there, like.
As it turns out, he was not.
No, sorry.
That's so think about that, honestly.
That's so good.
Anyway, that is what people are reading, like, and thinking that it is like literature,
right?
Well, but there's also a lot of books that were fan fiction that have been turned into like books.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happening. I mean, that is.
Well, there's a lot of political books, even about this president and administration that are tantamount to fan fiction. So,
I mean,
somebody needs to create something.
I mean, there's whole news networks that are basically fan fiction at this point.
I mean, I've just envisioned kids being at school, like, what? I'm never going to carry around a TI-84 calculator and do calculus all day or whatever. Like, why do I have to learn this? And now I feel like if I was a kid, I'd be like, why do I have to learn grammar or punctuation? The president doesn't, and he's the president.
Great.
Also, like anybody who writes in like all caps, like for everything, I'm just like, please don't. I'm so triggered about this. The other thing I will put out there about like writing, which I learned and it blew my mind the other day, and this is a PSA for anybody who uses ChatGPT, which, like, full disclosure, we all use it all the time because it's a great little sidekick. But when it writes, if you ask it to craft anything, you can tell if somebody used ChatGPT because of all the dashes.
Yeah.
I did
Them
not
dashes. Yeah.
Until somebody pointed it out to me, and I can't unsee it now because the amount of
things sent to me that are like, you know,
M dash, M dash, M dash, M dash, M dash.
yes. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah, just PSA, if you're going to do anything with ChatGPT, look at all the dashes, delete, and like,
Actually, and I think that is because like the way that these models are, I mean, they're trained by somebody, right? And that means that they're trained by someone who writes the way that they talk, because that's the only reason that you have all of those M dashes in
that makes sense.
In a book or in any kind of writing, right? Somebody is writing the way that they talk.
So I write that way, so it works for me. However, there are a bunch of other little things that ChatGPT does that are like that. And so anyway, word for the wise for folks using it for your homework. You can go into your settings and tell it to remember never to do an M dash or never to use this or that word, or to always use certain formatting. And then it will do that.
Okay, well, there's a little AI.
Just
figure out the Oxford comma. ChatGPT.
Bring back the comma.
Bring back the comma. Bring back 2 spaces after a period. Like, there's a lot of things.
Like, oh my God, don't get me started. Okay, anyway, we totally like digressed here, but
off track.
Right, these are all things.
I wish that we had like recess. Like I could really use recess in the middle.
Oh, I would love a recess.
Recess, yeah. You know what I've done is I've started incorporating into my day. I just like get outside for like 20 to 30 minutes. I like literally block my calendar to go outside, whether it's to walk, just like answer some emails, but like soak up some vitamin D in the process or whatever. And like the mental health reset that gives you, I'm like, that's why kids recess. Oh my God.
Because even your desk is grim. And like, every single day I don't have an office anymore. And so now I actually can just go out and sit, but I go out and sit on my patio because like, I just gotta like,
just get out there. Yeah. But anyway, okay, back to like the topic though. Moms, back to school. I'm curious for all of our thoughts. I'm going to like kind of put us all on the spot here because we've talked about like the, you know, unraveling of institutions and like social safety net and support systems for moms and also for kids. If there was like one policy change that we could snap our fingers and make to help moms and kids and make like school more sustainable and allow moms to like not kill themselves every day, what would that be and why, Sam?
I mean, I think it's flexible and elongated schedules, like whether that's formal academic program or inclusive of childcare or whatever. But the reality is, and this was a huge determinant in me going out and starting my own company, is even making less money right away out the door, I didn't have to be like a butt in a seat at a desk. And I could decide like when I got her to school and I didn't have to do preschool care or after post-school care because I had the luxury of getting my daughter to school. And if there was an incident or I wanted to visit for lunch or, you know, I couldn't be there until 5 o'clock, you know, none of those things were problematic. But when you have to punch a clock, and please understand, in my experience at least, male in particular, but also female supervisors are not really big fans of like, oh yeah, you got to go get your kid, right? Like they don't care. Sorry, you have a job, figure it out. And so allowing the flexibility for people to drop their kids off early or later and making sure that there are kind of enriching systems, like maybe it's not a formal academic program, maybe it is, but at least there's food and they're safe. I think that is singularly, right? You eliminate the childcare argument if you have school systems that are set up to accommodate families around a normal workday. That would be my number one.
I'll piggyback on that a bit actually, because like mine was very similar. I would require, if companies require you to be in the office from like X time to X time and you have children, then I would say they either have to be like contributing to an after school care program or provide some sort of program that enables you to stay at work. They're requiring you to stay at the office and not have to like go figure out how do I go get my kid, make sure I make X call and make sure like everything goes well. It's like, if you're going to have a rule around people being in a seat and they have kids, and like, to be clear, I think as a society, we want people to continue having kids because like the future depends upon it.
Yeah.
Then like, provide a means for them to do that.
Well, or give them the time. I mean, you know.
Yeah, or what you said. Like, yeah, it has to be either or. Like, it can't be what we have right now.
Right. Because one thing that really like that kind of like triggered me during COVID, because Ashley was still in school. She was still in high school, the first year of COVID lockdowns, which was its own nightmare. But, you know, people expected you to always be on camera and on Zoom, even though you were home and you couldn't be in. And I just remember feeling like I was going to have a fucking stroke all of the time, because I'm like in the car, on the phone, driving, trying to get her somewhere or pick up something. And I'm not doing that well or safely, or the phone call well or safely. And, you know, when you put people in a position to have to juggle 5 things at once and you don't let them take half an hour, you lose 2 hours of productivity. Oh, and P.S., I hate working for you. You know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very real. Adama, what about you?
I think our school funding being tied to property values in the area around it is like the most insane thing and the most like built-in inequity that we can have in our school systems. Like, I don't know. That to me is like enemy number one.
So in addition to the property values being tied to the money that gets to the school, we have what's called ADA in California. It's average daily attendance. And so that means that you get paid by the state for how much attendance your students have in the classroom. And so naturally, areas where you have parents who have difficulty getting their kids to school, where it's not walkable, where schools, you know, there's a bus that you could miss, etc., you have higher rates of truancy. You have higher rates of folks not coming into class. And so then on top of the fact that they're already getting a smaller amount to begin with, they are getting even less because of absences. And in the
then the system starts criminalizing parents, but usually kids who are truant. Like there's a whole host of evils that feels like it all rolls out of our school funding and the way that we do it, and it bakes inequity into our system. And when you hear about like school to prison pipelines, it's not the schools in nice areas, right? Like, I mean, I went to San Diego High, which is a old downtown San Diego high school. Like the schools that actually had money, like Patrick Henry and, you know, schools that are out in the suburbs, they are not discussed as prison, you know, school to prison pipeline schools. That's other schools that get that distinction, right? And that is baked into their funding. And there's not really a lot to do about it. And sometimes as neighborhoods change and gentrify, maybe some things change, but
there are things to do about it. So when Obama was in office, he instituted, basically he tied the purse strings to the policy. He said if states are going to insist on doing this sort of ADA thing, which is inherently classist and racist, we're not going to give them their federal dollars. We're going to withhold some of these funds. So this was 2008, maybe 9. In any case, California changed its laws on the books that we would direct the Department of Ed to move away or find an alternative to per ADA funding so that we could qualify ostensibly for all of the various federal dollars. So we changed the law, we got the money, all good. We've never actually implemented the change. We have never moved away from per ADA funding. We just said we were going to talk about it and that we could
so that we get the money.
So between the Department of Ed and the state legislature, you just have had a decade and a half of people sitting on their hands with a law in the books they can change, all the federal incentives in the world. And so I know we've been talking a lot about federal changes, but even when you have a positive impetus to remedy something, someone at the end of the day still has to care enough to do the work. And in the case of California on this issue, we just cared enough to get the law in the books, to get the money, but not about the kids. And that's now decades in with the same problem.
Yeah.
So lots of changes need to get made, ladies.
Anyway, weird that so many people are starting to homeschool.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. Can't imagine why.
Yeah.
Wild.
Anyway, well, as we wrap this up, let's shift to our empowerment moment. What advice? I mean, Sam, I feel like you're best suited to give this because, like, you're the mama and you've put a child through school. Like, all the way through. Yeah. So why don't you leave our listeners with a tip or two around how to navigate being a mom and having a child and trying to get them into this world intact?
I mean, I think, like, as a matter of self-care, give yourself grace, because we are all doing the best with what we can do, and comparison is the thief of joy. Like, it goes so fast. Enjoy your time with your children. Do what you can. Make it special as you can. Check in with them and on them and each other, because a lot of things, especially with tech, can happen quickly, and you can be totally outside of the reality that your kid is facing. But, beyond that, I would say Ashley we did public school, we did charter school, we did private school, we did tutoring, we did, like, whatever it was that worked for her at the time, we did. And much to the chagrin of friends, family, neighbors, teachers. I work in politics, in democratic politics, so moving to a charter school was very unpopular at a certain point in time, and still is amongst many folks. And at the end of the day, like, fuck it, you got one shot at this, and it's your kid. So what does your child need? And it doesn't matter if you don't have a master's in education. It doesn't matter if you, like me, were a 19-year-old who got pregnant right away. Like, this is your kid, and no one knows your kid better than you. So make the choices you have to make, put them in the spaces that you have to put them, and adapt your life around it, because again, it will go fast, but the implications and the impact of how it goes will be life altering. So that's the time. That's my advice.
I love it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I did want to list out, because when I was researching for this episode, I actually didn't know. Of course, there's like a myriad of resources and organizations that are out there to help moms. And so I wanted to list a few, and we'll link them in the notes for this episode. But Moms Rising, it's an advocacy organization that works on paid family leave, childcare, maternal health, among other things. The YWCA, apparently there are many local branches that provide childcare and after school programs, as well.
I went to YMCA after school programs, and they also serve food. They also have like breakfast and lunch programs, and like they feed people at the YMCA and YWCAs.
Yeah, I had no idea, and I love it. And then there's a couple others I'll give a shout out to. Childcare Aware of America is helping families. It's matching them with affordable care options around the U.S. And then the National Women's Law Center is a legal and policy advocacy firm or organization focusing on childcare and then pregnancy discrimination issues as well. So all some orgs recommend you check out. And yeah, again, we'll link them. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. For all you moms out there who are juggling getting your kiddos back to school,
good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
You're literally holding the country together, though. So like, just know you're seen.
You're not just holding your own family and household together. You're holding us all together.
Literally. So yeah, no pressure or anything. But change happens when we stop doing it alone and start demanding better systems together. So I'll just put that little call to action out there about like voting and getting civically engaged, because if we don't, it's going to continue to be a freaking mess. All right. Subscribe, leave a review, and make sure you follow us on socials if you don't already, so you don't miss future content. But yeah, thanks for tuning in for this special back to school edition, and have a great week, everybody.
Bye.